Welcome back to the deep dive. One question we keep hearing is, how does ChatGPT search, really stack up against Google? And got to give a shout out to Curt Robbins. He's a senior technical writer and suggested this deep dive. So thanks, Curt.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really important question, especially for folks who work with information all the time, like technical writers, people in documentation, IT, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So we found this in-depth analysis from Search Engine Land. It's called, hold on, let me get this right, ChatGPT Search versus Google, a deep dive analysis of 62 queries by Enge, published December 23rd, 2024.
And what's really cool about this analysis is they didn't just go with whatever's popular. They actually used 62 different queries, and they left out navigational queries on purpose.
Why'd they do that?
Well, because Google kind of already, dominates that area.
So they wanted to zero in on those tougher searches, where it's not so clear what the user's actually looking for.
Exactly. They looked at informational queries, local searches, even some where the intent could be interpreted in a bunch of different ways.
Oh, interesting. So they weren't just looking at the results themselves, huh?
Nope. They also looked at the accuracy, how complete the results were, and whether the results actually offered some helpful follow-up resources.
Okay, so they were going for the whole user experience then, not just if the search engine, can find the right link. So what'd they find? Anything surprising?
Yeah, actually. One of the most surprising things was how well ChatGPT search did with content gap analysis. Like, imagine you're working on a help doc, right? ChatGPT search could actually look at that content and point out places where it's weak or, missing some key information.
Wow, that's wild. Like having an AI editor who can tell you, hey, you missed a step here, or this part needs more details. But how does it even do that?
So it uses a kind of natural language processing, NLP. It uses that to understand the content and figure out where the info is incomplete or could be, beefed up. For example, in the article, they had this example where ChatGPT search had to analyze content about how to create a podcast.
Okay.
And it actually managed to spot several missing steps, like picking a podcast host and submitting your podcast to directories, stuff like that.
That's seriously impressive. As a technical writer myself, I can definitely see how useful that would be.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Of course, it wasn't perfect, It did miss a few gaps here and there.
I figured.
But overall, it did really well, especially considering it's a pretty new feature.
So ChatGPT search is kind of shaking things up a bit then, huh? What about areas where Google's still got the edge?
Well, when it comes to local queries, Google is, without a doubt, still the king. Think about it. If you're searching for, the best pizza near you, Google's got this giant database of local businesses. Plus all that mapping data from Google Maps and Waze. ChatGPT search can't really compete with that kind of local info yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sounds like each platform has its own, strengths, and weaknesses.
Yeah.
Did they find any areas where both of them struggled?
Well, one thing they both had trouble with is what they called the garbage in, garbage out problem. Basically, if the information that's already out there on the web is wrong or outdated, both ChatGPT search and Google can end up showing those inaccuracies in their results.
Yeah, that's a good point. Makes you think all of us who create content, we've got to be extra careful, make sure our info is accurate and up to date, right? But it also makes me wonder if both platforms are relying on existing web data, how can we as content creators actually help improve that data, make it better?
That's a great question. And it kind of highlights the responsibility we all have as, information providers. We really got to think about the info we're putting out there and make sure it's accurate and current and well organized, all that good stuff.
Totally agree. It's like we're all part of this big system, and the quality of the content, it directly impacts how effective these search tools are.
Exactly. And that's something we're going to, explore a bit more as we dig deeper into this analysis.
Now I'm really curious to see what else they found.
One thing they dug into a lot in this analysis was how these platforms, handle disambiguation.
Right. Disambiguation. I remember that from my linguistics classes way back when. But for our listeners who might not be, linguistics nerds like me, could you break down what disambiguation means? Specifically when we're talking about search?
Sure. Disambiguation is basically figuring out what a user actually means when they type in a word that could mean a bunch of different things. Take the word router, for instance.
Oh, yeah, good one. Router could be a networking device or, a woodworking tool. So how'd they do with that one?
Well, it turns out both Google and ChatGPT search had some trouble consistently figuring out the right meaning of router
Yeah.
just based on like the search query itself. The article pointed out that past searches, the context can really change how the platforms understand those kind of ambiguous words.
So let's say I just searched for like best Wi-Fi deals and then I typed in router. The platform might like assume I'm talking about networking routers, not, the woodworking kind.
Exactly. That's why understanding what the user's trying to do is so important for search. And it's something that we as technical writers really got to keep in mind, too.
For sure. It's not just about using the right keywords, right?
Yeah.
You got to think about how those keywords fit into the bigger picture of what the user's trying to do, their goals, all that.
Yeah. Yeah, precisely. And speaking of context, another interesting thing they found was that both platforms sometimes make assumptions about what the user's searching for, and that can lead to, well, some pretty funny results.
Kind of like those autocorrect fails you see all the time.
Yeah, kind of, but on a more like conceptual level. The article had this great example with the search term penguin.
Okay, I have a feeling this is going to be good.
So the author, Enge, was actually looking for info on the Penguin, which is this German World War II ship. But both platforms, they just assumed he meant penguin, like the bird, the cute flightless bird.
Oh, no, they totally missed the boat, so to speak.
Yeah, they did. And they missed it because the penguin ship is, a pretty obscure topic.
That's hilarious. It just shows you, even these super fancy algorithms, they can still trip up when they run into something, out of the ordinary.
It also shows how important it is to be clear and specific when you're typing in your searches. Like if you're looking for something, kind of niche, you might need to use more descriptive words to help the platforms get what you mean.
Makes sense. So after all those tests, all that comparing, who came out on top?
Well, it's not really a, clear-cut winner situation. Google did better consistently in informational searches, local searches, and commercial queries, which, makes sense, right? They've been around forever and they've got tons of data.
Yeah, they're like the heavyweight champ. But what about ChatGPT search? Did it show any promise?
Definitely. It actually did great in areas like, content gap analysis and handling those more nuanced, like conversational queries.
So each platform has its own, like, superpower then?
I like that. And the important thing for us to remember is that both platforms are still, changing, evolving. What we're seeing now is just a snapshot in time.
And with tech changing so fast, who knows what it'll look like, even a year from now?
Exactly. And that's why it's super important for us, technical writers, IT professionals, anyone who works with info. It's important for us to stay up to date on all this stuff.
Like we need to, learn the language of search, right?
Yeah.
Understand what it's good at and what it's, not so good at.
Couldn't have said it better myself, which actually leads to a pretty important question. Knowing what we know now about these platforms, how can we actually use this knowledge to create better content, do better research, even design interfaces that are more user-friendly?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's what I'm going to be thinking about for a while.
It's a question we all need to wrestle with, And to kind of help us dig into that question a bit more, I want to share one last insight from that search engine land analysis.
Lay it on me.
Okay, so we've covered a lot, right? Content gap analysis, disambiguation, that whole garbage in, garbage out thing, even those times where, the platforms totally misinterpret what we're trying to search for.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey through the world of search. And it really shows you just how complicated all this stuff is.
Yeah, for sure. It's clear that both Google and ChatGPT search, they're powerful tools. But they've also got, their weaknesses. I think the most important thing is that even though these platforms are, crazy sophisticated, at the end of the day, they're still just tools, They can help us do more, but they can't replace, human expertise, human judgment.
That's a really good point. It's easy to go caught up in all the hype around AI and everything, but we can't forget, what we bring to the table, our knowledge, our skills.
Exactly. We've got to be critical thinkers.
Well, a huge thank you to Curt Robbins for suggesting this deep dive. It's been a really thought-provoking conversation.
It really has. It's been great exploring all this with you.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this this journey of discovery.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing those boundaries.
Until next time, stay curious.